really hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe, like, and click the bell to be notified of more fantastic music content just like this.
Welcome to the Need to Know Music Show with me, Ronan MacManus, here on Switchbox TV. And today I'm joined by a singer-songwriter from Massachusetts who's been releasing great folk pop rock since the early 90s and has just released a new album this year, The Sweetwater Sessions. Please welcome Jonatha Brooke. How are you?
Yay! So happy to be talking to you and not looking at Twitter.
Just for those watching this, we are recording this on US Election Day. So if nuclear war has happened, then you won't be watching this anyway. But just don't, spoiler alert, we don't know what's happened. So hopefully it's all calm and lovely. So let's just, but we're going to give you a break from election fever.
I'm so happy to have a break. Yeah, because it's like that bad accident that you can't not look at, and it's it's exhausting.
So this is the Need to Know Music Therapy Show, designed especially for you.
Yay! Thank you.
So we are going to talk a little bit about this year and how it's 2020, what has that meant for you, what plans were ruined, and how have you kind of. Everyone seems to have innovated in some way or changed, at least changed plans. So how have you found it's been for you?
Well, the beginning was just terrifying because our year just got wiped out. Like in 1 week's time, both my husband and my husband is a manager of recording artists. He manages David Sanborn, Curtis Stigers, Davina Sowers, and Cyril M.A. and me, but we're both in the same damn business, so our year was just gone in a matter of 10 days, and so we were like, honey, what are we gonna do? Like, this is really scary. Like, how are we gonna? And then it sort of turned into like, okay, well, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna start doing concerts every week from the kitchen, from like right here. And
the live streams.
Yeah, I've been doing live streams.
How did you do them? I mean, did you do them just straight to the phone? Did you have any software or any sort of fancy gizmos?
No, I started out completely technically in the dark ages. I basically had a phone and the laptop, so it kind of looked like this, and it probably sounded like this. And then, it's funny because the Europeans are so much less polite about like what's working for them and what isn't. So like all of my Dutch, German, Danish friends would be like, the sound is not so good, Jonatha. You need to do something about the sound. So then week after week I would try new things. I would put quilts up so that they wasn't so echoey, and then I got a camera, and then I got a little mixer so that I could add a little reverb to the voice and the guitar. So now I'm super high tech, and I'm sad. I kind of miss the a phone and a laptop days, but it's been a great education, and it's been incredibly lovely and reassuring because people are so generous, and they know that our world has been completely decimated, and they're there week after week, coming to my little concerts. It's my world tour from my kitchen, and helping sustain me, and contributing. We call it like the ticket price every week, but people are just every week they'll throw me some dough, and I'm still alive.
Yeah, it seems it's been a very technological steep learning curve for all, I think. I've been on the exact same journey. Where I because the first week lockdown actually happened the end of St. Patrick's week, but I do a lot of Irish music. So the pubs I was playing in, some of them had closed down. So I found myself at St. Patrick's night, and most of the pubs had closed, although not officially, the country. So it was like massive earner for us. Obviously, normally that week would be a big week for us. Yeah. And so I just went live to my phone. That was where it started. And then week to week, I've got myself. I've now got scrolling text and logos,
wow,
and all sorts of stuff. I'll tell you what, it's brilliant. But it's still my sofa behind me. It's still my,
I know. And you don't have to really wear pants. You could just still be in your pajamas on the.
Absolutely. People don't know this. You're giving away our secrets now.
Shh, don't tell.
So so you found that. How did you find that kind of? Because it's a different dynamic, isn't it? That sort of, if you got say you've got 100 people on your stream, it's still effectively 100 gigs for one, because then it's not a shared experience from their point of view, and it's like, and you're only seeing maybe text coming up on the screen. How did you get used to it quite quickly, or did it take you a while to kind of adjust?
I stepped up right away, because I knew I had to act. It is like acting, because you're pretending that. Are you still there?
Right. I am, sorry.
You're pretending that, you're with all those people. You're pretending that, you have this, great audience, and it feels like that to that. They don't really have to think about that. They don't have to think it's just me alone in my living room and she's in her kitchen. And you want to sort of at least create this escape, this illusion that it's kind of like just having a front row seat in a great little club. And that's how I approached it. And I tried to really make it a performance and be very, I got dressed up, I put on makeup, I really performed for the camera, and I tried to approach it like it was a gig. I took it very seriously. I would make my set list and I would have things to say. And I think that was what has sustained the audience. They keep coming back, which is, it hasn't worked as well for some of my friends. And it's tough. It's a tough gig, as you know. It's because you're just looking at this little green dot, but you're pretending that it's 500 people in a theater. So,
try not to get put off too much with people's comments to each other and whatever, sort of try. I find I was forgetting lyrics because I was reading people's comments, I got a bit distracted.
That is a little distracting, but you get used to it, and it's great training. It's really great training. You can handle anything now.
Exactly, yeah. It's the most exposing, I suppose, because you're literally just there. It's nothing, there's nowhere to hide. It is just literally, you in front of the camera, bang, there you go.
Yeah.
So what was meant to happen? You just had a load of shows booked, or did you have anything sort of special booked?
Well, I had a bunch of shows booked. I had a record that came out. So there was that, and that so I was promoting it from my kitchen, basically. And I've been working on a musical. So for that, it's been great, because I've had more time, to just sit upstairs and hunker down and work on those songs that I'm working on for the musical. And then I decided I had all these workshops that I had planned too. I do a fair amount of teaching these days, teaching songwriting. And so those got killed as well. So I decided to give it a shot and create some Zoom master classes, and that's been great. That's been really an awesome response, and a really great way to get to people around the world that might not have made it to Nashville or Minneapolis.
Yeah, I think that from what I've heard, people doing the Zoom songwriting sessions, at least, is that back and forth thing gives it a slightly different dynamic, but actually can be an advantage and brings it something slightly different, because you can't play simultaneously.
Right. Yeah. And also, especially because I tend to write in these weird guitar tunings. I don't really play in standard tuning at all. So especially the guitar tuning workshops have been really good, because Zoom is particularly perfect for that, because you don't have to listen to everybody noodling and trying to find the chord at once. They can all mute themselves so that I'm the only one, I'm the only one that they can hear, which is way better than 20 people in a room trying to learn open D tuning. You're like, ah! So Zoom has been great for that as well.
And so what's the musical?
Well, it's a commission. These amazing producer guys from New York had this idea, sort of a loose story idea, and commissioned me and this amazing young playwright named Jacqueline Backus, who's had some really cool success over the last few years. They just sort of put us together, like, we want you two to, be together and see what happens. And so we've had a great time working on ideas, and I think I've written about 8 or 9 songs so far, and we just turned in our first outline, and we've had our conversation with the overlords, we call them, about like what they love about it, and so we've gotten the green light to move to the next step, which is very exciting. So
that's great. Yeah. Excellent. So when are we like? Well, I suppose it's impossible to know when this might come out because this damn virus is in the way. So yeah. So it's
I know.
Would you plan for sometime for next year? Is that kind of the rough plan?
Yeah, I think that our next sort of goalpost is like late April, May, to have a first draft ready and to hopefully have sort of a reading in a room somewhere with some actors and singers. But I'm not going to hold my breath. I think it's going to be maybe next fall before anyone's in a room with anyone singing or talking.
Yeah. Oh, well, good luck with that. Sounds interesting. Sounds great.
I know,
we'll have to stay tuned.
Isn't it so weird that like singing is the most dangerous thing you could do right now?
Yeah, it's just like I've been doing the gigs like, well, we're just literally locking down this week again as we speak. But I've been doing the gigs, and actually one of the guidelines that they said for the audience is they're not allowed to sing along. And I'm like, I'm like, well, I always make the joke that, I'm here to play songs you don't like or even know, if possible. So
to keep you from killing each other, right?
Yeah, exactly. Don't clap your hands unless you sanitize them. So it's a really strange atmosphere where everyone has to be sat down, and there's actual guidelines for people to not sing along with you, and it's just completely counterintuitive to everything that we. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I suppose it's necessary to keep us all safe, but it's just really
so are you on like full lockdown again, like the serious, like don't go out?
All the bars and pubs are closing again in 2 days time as we speak now. I'm aware this is going out probably in a couple of weeks time, so but schools are still open and that kind of thing, so they're trying to keep things going, so it's this half and half, but yeah, it's not much fun, but there you go. But at least I get to spend more time talking to lovely people like yourself.
Yay!
Yay! So let's go to the start, your early years and sort of growing up. Was it a musical? I grew up in a very musical house, and it was very kind of a musical atmosphere. What was your growing up like?
It was pretty musical too. It was also very wordy. Like my mom was a poet, my dad was a journalist, newspaper journalist. My brothers were both like English majors and scholars and writers, and my dad played the trumpet, my mom played the piano. My oldest brother is a Scottish piper, like serious Scottish bagpiper. Wow. My other brother's a really good piano player. So there was a lot of music and a lot of poetry, and like this obsession with telling stories well and using great language, and so it was intimidating. I was the youngest, so I was always like kind of feeling a little behind the curve in terms of everyone else seemed so much smarter than I. So it was kind of like I had to find my own little place, which ended up, I was a dancer first, but I was always musical, always playing along and learning stuff by ear. And then
you were getting everything fed down to you at that point.
Yeah.
And it was a great petri dish. A great petri dish for a storytelling folk singer songwriter. So it's just,
for sure, yeah. For sure.
All the right ingredients, definitely.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of people, at first you're just absorbing, and then you're sort of spitting back, you're imitating everything that you hear because you want to sound like, at first I wanted to sound like Bonnie Raitt, I wanted to sound like, Stevie Wonder. Well, that wasn't going to happen. So I started drinking and smoking, and that didn't help. So eventually I sort of really came to my own sound, my own voice. And part of that was finding all these open tunings on the guitar. And really I think my biggest sort of the unique thing that I carry is this obsession with dissonance. I just love weird chords and extra tension notes, and I love vocal harmonies that like stick it to you on minor and major seconds and then maybe don't resolve, or like resolve later than is comfortable. But that's the kind of thing that I've been drawn to from the beginning, and I think that that's kind of become my signature.
I was going to say, I was going to talk about the Neil Finn connection later, a little bit later on, but my oldest son is called Finn. I mean, I'm a huge Crowded House fan, a huge Neil Finn fan, and I found some very reminiscent your music. I found I could hear a lot of Neil Finn in there. There's certainly must be similar influences and things like that.
Absolutely.
But also, did you get into with the open tuning side of things? Did you get into that sort of Joni Mitchell style of just kind of really just tuning the strings to what you wanted to sound like? You know what I mean? There was a kind of a real experimentation with open tunings, or did you stick to kind of set ones?
No, I would often find new ones, like especially when you're traveling and you sort of detune your strings a bit to go to the next city, you know, if you're flying. So I'd take the guitar out of the case and there would be like another new tuning that I would just like, oh, well, And often it's a writing tool, and it kind of opens up the landscape and the harmonics to a new song idea. But yeah, Joni's like even more like crazy than I have been. Like she would like tune it to like the crickets would be in C minor, you know, so she'd like be outside listening to crickets and she'd be like, oh, I'm going to tune it to the crickets. And I'd be like, I haven't figured that out yet, but.
Sorry, my cat just came to say hello.
Hi, kitty.
He's annoying, that cat. He's not the nice one. The other one's the nice one. Sorry.
But they're good for lockdown. At least they're, you know, friendly, cozy.
But on the Neil Finn thing, what I found similar was that way of like you taking like a not obvious chord sequence.
Yeah.
Chords that obviously follow each other, but finding still a really sort of poppy melody to go through it. And that's something that Neil Finn just does brilliantly. And it's also a great trait that you have. Is that something, I mean, how did that come about? Is that, you know, is there a kind of any, do you do that sort of thing? Is it naturally what comes to you, or is it something you've worked on that you aspired to do?
I think it's naturally what comes to me. And I think it's part of, I don't know, I sort of metaphorically think of creating a melody as almost like choreographing, you know, from my dance background. I sort of think of voices as bodies that move through space. And so I choreograph them, and I'm really loath to have them be boring bodies moving through space. I don't want them to be parallel to my, you know, my chord pattern. I want them to be counterpoints to one another. And I think Neil is great at that as well. Like there's this, I'm so much more excited by contrary motion and a guitar part that has its own world and a vocal that will be completely separate and add to that harmony, but not parallel it. And I think Neil does that same thing.
And he does that great. Go on.
Did you know we sang together on one song, which was super
exciting.
Exciting.
Where I was going. That's where I was going with this, because
actually I'm revisiting that song right now because I'm obsessed with it and I want to do it even better. And so maybe I should get him to come back, sing again on it.
You should do that, but it's going to be a while unless he can swim.
Yeah. Right. Well, they've just come out of lockdown, right?
Oh, have they? Okay.
I don't know. God,
well, maybe I don't know. Some of this. But yeah, so that's a song called New Dress.
Yeah, love that one.
Yeah. So what was it like? How did it come about? The Neil Finn duet.
Well, I was making that record. That's a record called Steady Pull. I was making that record with Bob Clearmountain, who's like, you know, the engineer mixer of all time. Just Google him and you'll see who he's worked with. But he's had worked with Neil and Crowded House quite a bit over the years, and so we had finished tracking that song, at least my parts, and Bob's like, you know who would sound great on this? Like Neil Finn. And I'm like, yeah. He would. And Bob's like, well, I'll just call him. I'm like, what? So Neil Finn came over and just hung out. We had dinner and, a glass of wine. And then I asked if he might throw a little harmony on that thing. He's like, yeah, sure, I'd love to. And he did that beautiful. And again, it's a beautiful part.
Yes.
And it's very much like the choreography of what I was talking about. It's not your standard harmony part.
But it must be right up his street, because you can see this similar sort of. I could really see him getting into that, really sort of something he may have written,
And I just love how our voices sounded together. They're so unique.
Sounded great, yeah. I mean, I love that. What love that he does and you do as well is that kind of sorry, this cat is going to really annoy me. I'm going to throw him out because he's just going to crawl all over and ruin this interview.
I love it.
1 second. He has no regard for my professional. Here we go.
Cheeky marmalade.
It's terrible. It's terrible. He's called Eddie. My kids think he's called Eddie after Ed Sheeran because he's ginger, but he's really named after Eddie Vedder. But don't tell him that. But one of the things I particularly love about what Neil Finn does is that he takes like a real sort of jagged kind of verse, and then it just smooths out into. He goes from sort of that unusual chording to something just beautiful, and just sort of goes from that sort of manic to the serene really well. And he's really good at kind of gear changes in that way. But I noticed there's a lot of that in your music too. You got very similar things, and it was really up my street. So I have to just say that I've been really enjoying taking a deeper dive into your music. Yeah, it's been great. So when you started gigging, what age were you when you started doing those gigs and things like that?
I guess I was in college, because it's weird, because I really thought I was going to be a dancer. I was a modern dancer, like down to my bones. But then when I started writing songs in college. I took a composition course, and all of a sudden, like the world just exploded on me, and I thought, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be doing this. So
you were given the tools to kind of unlock the door for you.
Absolutely.
What was that like?
It was like being hit over the head with a magical baseball bat.
Why isn't that an album title, The Magical Baseball Bat?
I'll get to work on that one. It just really felt like being discovered, like discovering myself, and writing and composing became this obsession. And so my every day was, and it's kind of still that way, where I'm sure this happens to you too, where you're like, how would that be a chorus? Oh, like, oh, wait, let me go write this down. Oh, there's a great story in that newspaper article. Or like, oh, that photo makes me think of this. Or like, poetry. Anything it's just always the gears are turning of like, where's the song in this? Where's the chorus? What's the hook? Where's my melody?
Yeah.
Where do I start?
So everything's flying around you. You just know it's going to end up. I mean, for me, everything ends up in a song. It's just the way I process things. Maybe it was different, but yeah, definitely that's the way I do things too. Yeah. But sorry, go on.
I'm actually working on a new project now, which is going to involve re-recording new dress with like layers and layers of cellos and layers of vocals. It's kind of a COVID experiment.
Wow.
But so I was talking to an interviewer who was going to help us sort of build the website for this project. It's called the Cello Songs Project. And I totally lost my train of thought, but it had to do with oh shoot, I totally lost what I was going to say.
Was it you were going to say? Was I saying about everything coming to you, ending up in a song? About
Gone.
A story newspaper that comes through, and I'm retracing your steps.
Wow, I just lost my. See, it's election.
It's gone. It's election fever. Yeah, this is it. Okay,
I'll think of it later.
Well, if you think of it later, we'll edit it back in. So it looks smooth, like it'll look all smooth, like you just thought of it. It'd be great. It'd be great, honestly.
Well, let me see. I know I answered. I was writing it down, so let me see if it's in this. document. Oh, I know what it was. Okay, so what it was the idea. Someone was asking me like, "What are you writing about now? Are you writing about the pandemic?" And it's such a crazy question because, in a way, because everybody has been affected, like everybody across the globe has been affected by this thing. Like, how do you even write about something that huge? How do you even, without being like, wow, this big crazy thing came and decimated the world. Wow, like, I'm going to get on this soapbox and say, like, why can't everybody just get along? Why can't everyone wear a mask? Like, and so how do you, the question is like, how do you, this has been what I've like obsessing about besides the election is how do I write this story? How do I tell this story in a way that is satisfying to me and not just, wow, it's been a really shitty year. How do where's the smaller story inside of it that will be the metaphor that will just be a unique take on it. And so that I'm searching for that thing. And that's exciting.
You could sort of see there's going to be 1,000 albums next year called That Shitty Year,
Yeah, like, do I really want that album? I don't think so.
But I mean, the thing about it is it's affected every part of everyone's life.
Yeah.
There's going to be tiny little stories, and that is probably where it's breaking it down into tangible things that have affected you. So it's not directly necessarily about it. But it's gonna be a narrative through all the music that's been written this year. It's gonna undoubtedly play a part. So just let it be what it is.
Yeah.
It's cool. Don't worry about it. Obsessing is kind of what we do, I know, but otherwise you wouldn't do what we do. But it's tough. You're gonna try to rein that in. It'll kill you.
Totally.
Right. I want to talk about the story, which is kind of the first thing where you first kind of got recognized. You're out there doing gigs and tours and that kind of thing. What was that time like? You met in college, that's right, with Jennifer.
Yeah, Jennifer was my singing partner in the story, and we were actually the reason we were so drawn to each other because we both loved dissonance. We both loved like finding those weird harmony notes, and so it was a great time, especially because we were living in Boston right after college. We both moved back to Boston, and we decided to give it a go, and we were calling ourselves Jonatha and Jennifer at the time, but it's such a great scene, especially back then. There were just tons of singer-songwriters out doing their thing.
A lot of venues around that time. There was lots of venues.
Tons of venues, lots of, like, even the rock clubs were having acoustic nights, and there's a gazillion church basements and coffee houses, and all in New England it's really rich territory for, just honing in on your craft. So we were all over the place back then, and little by little we got enough attention that we were able to make a really great demo and make an independent record, and that's what made its way to Warner Brothers, and we got signed to Elektra in I guess it was 1990. We got a deal with Elektra Records, which was super exciting. It was just a great time. It felt like so much possibility,
Yeah. What sort of gigs were you doing around that time then? You were like, outside of Boston, were you doing other gigs outside, or were you kind of mostly around town?
We would get down to like Philly and Connecticut and DC, the DC area, and up to like Portland, Maine, and a little bit in New Hampshire. But there's a sort of 5-state area that is, everything's within like 4 or 5 hours drive. New York, so you could really get a lot of gigs for your buck, just a car ride away.
So then you sort of you went solo. You kind of parted ways with Jennifer, and you kind of went solo. And I was reading about the 10 Cent Wings, the tour, where you sort of found out during the tour that you were being dropped by the label. But what I loved about it was the way that you kind of realized that the tour was still there, the people still coming to see you, and it sort of seems to have been a jumping off point for a kind of a place where everybody is now. Everyone's independent now, and you kind of you were doing it back then in the late 90s, which was kind of actually the old music business was still there, but it
Yeah.
was kind of crumbling. I mean, it was kind of around that time the majors started to be less important. I love the way you sort of spun it on its head and said, you know what, this actually could be something really good. And then obviously just went from strength to strength. What are your memories of that time? Obviously, it must be disappointing to hear the news. And then, but what were your memories of that time?
Yeah, it's weird to think back on it now because everyone is. I mean, there's so many people that are independent now, and labels are just not necessarily a great destination. And even back then, you're like you said, it was starting to feel like, well, wait a minute, they're not really doing such a great job. I can do this myself. I may not have the deep pockets to make the videos and have the tour support and that kind of stuff, but we can do all of these things. Like, we know what we're doing now, and so why not give it a go? And it was very empowering, like you said, to still be out there touring. Okay, the label had dropped me for no good reason because I had a single that was charting at radio that was doing really well, and it was just this very vindictive, weird thing, but so be it. But when I got back out on the road after a couple of shitty weekends, it just sort of felt like, well, wait a minute, like nothing really did change. And my fans don't care whose label I'm on. They just want me to keep making music and touring, whatever. And that was this like light bulb moment of like, wait a minute, I have everything I need. And yeah, maybe I have to lower the bar a little bit, and I have to sort of recalibrate my expectations of how many records I'm going to sell and how many people are necessarily going to know about me. But I can still make records. I can still tour. I still have the respect of my peers. So, I'm good. And that was really empowering. And we were early in the indie days. I mean, Ani DeFranco had already, she had sort of carved a little bit of a pathway and opened many doors in terms of being an indie. And then we walked through and we're like, all right, we can do this. And we set up e-commerce on the website. We were one of the first people to do sort of fan funding for the next record. And looking back, it's kind of like, wow, we've done some cool shit. Like
you really blazed the trail there.
Yeah, you make it up as you go along.
But all this is kind of standard practice now. This is kind of what bands do. They just fund things themselves off crowdfund things, and you set up all your own merch of your own website, and you fund your own tour. And even if a label is involved, you're still funding your own records for it to be made.
Basically, yeah.
It must have been kind of like, but there's probably more resources now to help people to do that. You were doing this at a time when the business must have been more set up for the more traditional routes.
Definitely. And we just decided, I mean, my husband is my partner with the label also, and is really good at he's just fearless. So he helped me not be afraid to be like, look, anything we make, we're going to put it back into the business. We're going to go for it. We're going to see if this works. And with Steady Pull, the record that I made with Bob Clearmountain that Neil Finn is on, we just were like, let's go for it. We could do this. And so like, we were calling the radio stations. We were getting Linger into being a top 5 single. We got on the Letterman show. We got on Craig Kilborn and Conan O'Brien, and so it was felt like this great vindication. We had gotten to the same exact place and further than the majors had gotten us, and we'd done it just mom and pop, Pat and Joe, and that felt really good. And then some of our old colleagues at the labels were calling us, going like, "Well, wait a minute, how did you get on Letterman?" And we're like, "Look, we worked our asses off. That's how we got on Letterman."
Well, exactly. To achieve those things is, those doors don't open straight away, so you've done.
No, I think the interesting part of it is that look, you can't have shitty music. So at the root of it is like, you got to have some good songs, like it or not. You can throw money at shit, but if the song's not there, and that's really at the root of everything, isn't it? Like you have a good song, and then you go from there.
That was Bad Dog Records.
Yeah.
So that was just you guys on your own doing Bad Dog. Fantastic. Was there any other? Has that ever grown into other artists and things like that?
Well, that's where we ran out of money. We're just like, that would have been so great if we'd had, like, we did get a top 5 song out of Linger on that record, but we just kept throwing the money back into Bad Dog, and it would have been great to have had enough to help some others along the way, but we didn't.
Well, I think this is what people don't really realize about artists, is that people don't really get into it for fame and fortune. To make a living, from writing and recording your own music, it's all you really want to do, to be able for it to be sustainable and to keep being able to do it. And it's becoming harder and harder and harder for artists to do that now, and especially this last year has been devastating for the entire business. But it's to have that, and just to be able to make enough money to keep the whole thing afloat. That's an achievement in itself.
Totally.
Against all odds as well. That in those years where, as I said before, the business wasn't set up for independence as well as it is now.
Yeah, and also, I mean, thank goodness I got to a certain point where I can maintain before the pandemic, where I can sort of maintain a level of like, okay, I can make a decent living at this. Like, life is okay, and I'm definitely okay with this. The idea of, having to move backwards into like sleeping on people's floors and like 6 people in a van, like, I'm a little, I really don't need to do that again. At a certain point you're like, okay, where's the comfort level of what's okay, to keep doing this? And so far I've been all right.
Well, that's testament to the quality of the music, in fairness, and I think you can't underestimate that.
Thank you.
So I was really interested to see the album The Works you did in 2008. How did that, because it said Woody Guthrie's words and your music. Yeah. So tell me about that, because that's gonna been a project and a half.
That was such a great project. It was the most painless process that I've ever been through, because it really was like Woody Guthrie was in the room with me when I was going through his lyrics and his notebooks, and there were bits and pieces everywhere. So nothing was sort of preordained, and luckily his daughter, Nora, was very generous with what she allowed me to do. So there was a lot of cutting and pasting that went on, and with things that were gorgeous, like little couplets and little musings, but like some of them were very unfinished ideas, and Nora was super generous with letting me put bits and pieces together and create a solid narrative out of things that had been like years apart, and like one was on a napkin and one was on stationery and one was like on a watercolor page. So that was super inspiring, and I did really feel like I fell in love with this dead folk icon. I feel like I felt like he was there in the room, and I felt like what inspired me the most was that he wasn't precious about himself. Like he just wrote. There was no sort of mean girl on his shoulder saying, well, that sucks, you should get rid of that. Or, like, that's the things that sort of keep us in our head and keep us from just trying stuff, even if it doesn't work out. But, where you edit yourself way, way too soon. And Woody was really seeing all of his work and everything that he'd written down and kept, whether it was ended up being finished or not, was really a lesson in creativity, in like unbridled creativity, and his energy and his childlike enthusiasm was really contagious, even though he wasn't there.
So how did it come about in the first place? I mean, how did you get hold of Woody Guthrie's napkins?
Actually, I was in the UK when I got the call. I was hanging out with Boo Hewerdine.
Right, yeah.
We were up in Cambridge maybe, or somewhere. I was on a little UK tour, and I get this call from a radio station in Philly that has championed me over the years, and they were doing a benefit for the Folk Song Society, and Nora Guthrie had opened the archives to 5 hand-picked songwriters instructed to choose a song or two, put them to music, and then perform them at this big benefit concert. So that was the beginning. And that was when I sort of got this inkling of an idea of like, wow, wait a minute, this is a whole project. I need to make a record, because number one, Wilco and Billy Bragg had done two records with Woody's words, but no chicks had done a full record. So I was like, I'm going to be the chick. I'm going to be the chick in there with Woody's words. So that was pretty exciting. And Nora and I kind of fell in love when we first met. She was a modern dancer as well. So we had all of this dance vernacular in common, and we really hit it off, and she was so supportive of my approach to his words.
Sounds like it must be so amazing to do. I mean, it must be so.
It was pretty cool. Yeah.
It's nice. One of those things that we'd never think you get to do something like that. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
Brilliant. But it's like
Pat, my husband, always has like the bigger vision. Like I wouldn't have had the guts to ask, to push for it. And Pat was the one who's like, this should be your next project. You need to like push for this. And that's how it happened.
And it's good to have that person pushing you and also standing by you and all that kind of stuff. It's good to, must be a hard balance to strike though. Must be a hard balance to strike. So
far so good, 23 years in.
Can't knock that then. Can't knock that. It's working.
No.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what you say.
Yeah, he's really got guts, and we'll bet the shirt. We'll bet our shirts on stuff and do things that we never thought we could, and it always works out in the end.
Yeah, but you were saying about the Woody Guthrie lyric, thing. I started to try to do this thing where my phone is full of notes of like just if it's one line. As I used to sort of, if I couldn't do the whole song, I wouldn't do it, and I've started to do that. Just put a few lines here and there, and that's because if they do link up sometimes other things, you do find yourself putting things, threading things together, and
yeah, absolutely.
It's probably good practice to do. Did you find that anything like that has rubbed off on how you changed the way you approach writing, or were you already doing things like that? Was there any kind of effect?
The biggest effect was being more fearless, and because I used to be so paranoid. If I was working on something, I wouldn't want anyone to hear, and I would cry if I had to play it for somebody before I felt really secure about it. And now I'm like, hey, what do I have to lose? Like, why am I being so precious? Like, especially working on musicals, I will tell you that there's so many times when I'm demoing these very musical theater songs. They're very different from Jonatha's songs sometimes, and I can't sing like those characters. I can't, but I have to demo them and, send them to people that I barely know and be okay with that. And it's like doing the Woody record really made me feel like, all right, I'm just letting go. Here, you can have this shitty demo. I'm just letting you know how the song goes. I'm not trying to prove anything or get a record deal. And that's
I'm just walking out the house in my underwear,
Yeah, basically, bend over.
Man, yeah, that's it. I mean, but have you found being that fearless gets you to where it needs to get to a bit quicker?
Yeah, I think that you once it's out, once it's out in the air, in the open, then you're like, okay, it's not ready yet. But did that, was it so awful to experience that in front of other people? No, it's fine. So I think it's good to be that kind of brave.
And talking about brave, the one woman play, My Mother Has Four Noses.
Yeah.
What was that like going into? What was that? What was it? Literally, what was it like? I mean, what was the play? Was it musical at all? How did it come about? Because it feels like a big shift.
Oh my God. Okay. Talk about terror. Like, yeah, that was, I think that is the bravest that I have ever been. Because number one, I was writing in this new way. I was weaving together storytelling and songs back into storytelling, back, monologue. I was helping write the underscore, creating this, the bed of music that some of the dialogue, but also some of the songs would bring the cello and electric guitar in and out. I was acting. I was off Broadway on freaking 42nd Street, right across from Lion King for 12 weeks, 7 shows a week. And I was like, what the fuck was I thinking? Like, this is terrifying. But it felt like, okay, here we go, Pat. Here's another crazy thing. We might lose our shirts, but we have to do this. And again, he was like, we have to do this. We know how to do this. We've built shows before. We've toured before. It's a little more complicated because there's, all these other production values that we're entering in. But we know how to do this. You know how to tell a story. We're going to do this. And it felt imperative, number one, because I don't think anyone would believe the story of me and my mother if they didn't see the show. So there was that. And also it felt like this is a story that needs to be told because so many of us are going through it. So many of us will be caregivers. So many of us will have people in our family that get dementia. We're living way too long. If you live past 85, you're sort of 50-50 chance of getting Alzheimer's or some sort of dementia. So to talk about it and to make fun of it and to, have this sort of roller coaster theater piece, which is very funny, also very sad, but very beautiful. And in the end, it's a love story. It's a love story about me and my mother. It just felt like, okay, this is my next big scary thing. So I did it.
Was it cathartic to do that? I mean, there must have been.
It was incredible and definitely became part of the whole grieving process because my mom died in January and I had the first reading of the show that June. So
wow,
I had this deadline that was pretty fierce. So I was like writing and crying and then writing some more and then crying some more and then like going through her stuff and then going through her writings and then a song would come and then I would cry some more. And then, so it was just all part of this process of like, okay, where's the funny? Where's the sad? Where's the balance? Where do the songs weave in? Where does the storytelling interrupt the songs? Because that's another beautiful thing about theater is that you don't have time for a 4-minute song. You've got time for like a verse and chorus, and then you might continue the monologue and then go back into song on the bridge and then chorus out. But you're not going to sing the whole damn pop song. It's like it's a whole new, very exciting for me at least, way of storytelling where you're combining disciplines.
Must have been kind of like freedom in that too. I mean, to be able to sort of break out of your usual vehicle. To kind of go, well, I can just do this now and it doesn't have to be this anymore. It can just be this, it can be that, and gives you the freedom to sort of talk a bit, sing a bit. Great. I mean, this must have been really kind of, well, I suppose it was the perfect vehicle for something that personal.
Yeah, and I think that it helped, just the combination of those skills helped amplify the emotion of it all, like to get to a point in telling the story in a monologue where it just feels like now the song will continue because it's almost too precious in a good way, like it's unspeakable. I have to sing this now. Like there's only song will convey this feeling right now, and that's kind of exciting to find those moments.
You must have destroyed audiences with this.
Yeah, it did. I don't know if you've, there's a song that I play on the kalimba. It's on YouTube somewhere. It's called Time. And that one, we handed out Kleenex every night for that particular song.
I can imagine. I mean, so does the play itself exist anywhere digitally? Is there anywhere people could watch it, or is it snippets of it?
No, there's a couple snippets on YouTube, and they were from very early days. So they to me now they feel a little bit, uptight. But those are two sort of beautiful examples from, we did film a rehearsal way back in 2014, I think it was. But we never filmed a show with an audience. So that's on my bucket list. I really would love to film the show with really great production and a real audience, so that you can feel that push-pull, give-take of laughter and tears.
I was going to say, will we see a short film version of it or something, or a film or movie version? It would be something but that feels like it's that's definitely going to break the bank. to go,
especially after this year.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it's the wrong time to start planting that seed in your head. So
you never know. You never know. We just need a bunch of.
I'm just really intrigued to
patrons.
Hear the songs yes. There you go. Let's get it done.
Well, at least we have the record of those songs. So that record is really beautiful, and it does sort of at least tell the story in song form in its own way.
Cool. I mean, it sounds like such an amazing project. I'd love to have seen one of the live shows, but yeah. So let's talk about the new album. So the Sweetwater Sessions. You see, there's a bigger production on this now. There's like you've sort of expanded it from to a bigger sound.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the recording of it and the sort of the writing and that kind of thing.
Well, I love with each project there's sort of it's almost like there's a little framework that it gets put in, and they're like the rules that are established about how to approach each one. So this one, what kind of grew out of a recording workshop. So I don't know if you've heard of Sweetwater Sound, but they're basically like the Amazon of musical gear here in the States. So like anyone who needs anything like a compressor or microphones or like guitar stands or like cables, Sweetwater is the place, and you have your own salesperson that you talk to. They also have a beautiful recording studio. So they do these workshops where 16 people can come witness the recording process in a world-class studio. So the Sweetwater Sessions grew out of a recording workshop that we were doing. So 16, it was all dudes. 16 dudes show up, and our idea, Mark Hornsby and I, he was the studio guy at the time, was to just see what happened, like get amazing musicians together, show in the workshop how it feels to record live as a band, but in a way that is incredibly well recorded, and you have separation and you have all these things, but you have like world-class musicians playing together so that it has a vibe. So that was the idea behind the workshop. And then we're like, well, wait, if we're going to do that, we might as well, get a few, get like 10 songs and see what happens, and maybe there will be a record in it. So that's what happened. I chose songs from my entire catalog, including a Beatles cover song, and some very early songs that had never really gotten attention that I thought they deserved. And so I put together this list of 11 songs, and we somehow in like 3 days we recorded a record and had it and had these 16 dudes like witnessing this creative process, which was kind of exciting. For me, it's great because I had an audience, so I couldn't be lazy or screw things up, and they got to witness the psychology and the joy and the fear and the exuberance and the pain of making a record.
Wow, I mean that's making a record in that way it's quite tense. I mean, to do it 3 days and do it all together, but it must have been almost like, I suppose it's the nearest you can get to a live recording in a studio.
Yeah.
Like as far as as in recreating the live version of the song.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I prefer recording that way. Anyway, I'm not someone who can build it piece by piece and feel as inspired by it. I just love that vibe of tracking with the band. And often those will be the takes that are on the record. That's just I mean, if you've been touring this long and, playing live this long, then you're bound to get a vibey take that way.
Yeah, it's about capturing the moment, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's also something special about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, I wanted to ask you about a career highlight, something that you look back on and you think something you're really proud of, something that sticks out in your mind that you over the years.
Well, I mean, the Mom Show was pretty much as high stakes as it gets. That was a pretty amazing highlight, and getting the reviews that we got in the New York Times and Time Out being critics' pick we were just kind of pinching ourselves. That was really a big deal, and just so lovely that it meant something to so many people. Playing the Montreux Jazz Festival was pretty great. Letterman was pretty great. I mean, those are three that come to the top of my head right away.
So Letterman was doing the thing where he has the album in front of him and does all that kind of stuff, does he? Like,
I know.
The new album here and that thing yours does, and
yeah, I know, and I got to the chair, which is a big deal apparently. So like, if you get to the chair and you actually get to have a chat with him, that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's great. He was like, that show was just so huge. I mean, it's huge over here too. I mean, it's not everything makes it over the water, but that certainly did.
Yeah,
it was one of the first ones that did.
He's just unparalleled. He's so great.
Yeah, amazing. So what's next now? I mean, I know it's hard to know what's next at all, but what's the sort of plans you're making tentatively, maybe for next year? Shows and gigs, and you got the musical you're working on? That's the first.
I got something. I got the musical I'm working on, and I've got this this kind of new little framework for a new project called the Cello Songs Project.
Oh yes, Cello Songs.
That grew out of one of my kitchen concerts. My cellist, Rebecca, who lives a couple blocks away here in Minneapolis, we got COVID tests so that we could play together. And
cool.
So we chose all the favorite songs that we've made cello charts for over the last few years, and we did a concert of all the cello songs from the kitchen. And that sort of sparked this idea of like, well, wait a minute, what if we expanded on this? And we made a record of only cello and voice and possibly keyboard, but that would be the framework. That would be the rules. It would be like layers of cello, layers of voice, possible keyboards, but everything had to be made by us. All the sounds would have to be made by us. And so we've started on that project now. So I've got the musical and the Cello Songs project in my sights.
Good. So I like to hear we've got things that are not going to be restricted by COVID. That you can do and get out there, and stuff that we can actually hear that won't be hindered, because it's ruining enough things as it is. So it's good to hear there's some recording projects going on. So fantastic.
Lord, and maybe we'll have a new president, and that will make things a lot better for most of us.
Now, when this goes out, they will know watching this. So either happy, we'd do one take if you're happy, one take if you're sad.
Yeah. Well, one take I'll be knocking on your door.
Yeah. Well, I don't think
like, please let me in. Here. Yeah, you've got your own problems.
We've got our own problems. Yeah. We always ask for a recommendation at the end of the show. So we always ask for, is there somebody who you would recommend people check out? It can be someone that's unknown or little known, or it can be someone that's just influenced you so much people have to know how much they've influenced you. Who would you choose?
Well, it's an older record. Well, it's not old, but I still am obsessed with this Belgian guy, Stromae.
Okay.
It's Stromae.
Okay. Oh, I've seen that name.
It's
I have Belgian friends. I do gigs over in Belgium sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, I think the record's called Racine Carrée, which means crossed roots.
Okay.
But I just think he's remarkable for the combination of influences that he puts together in what, on the surface might sound like dance music, but his lyrics and his singing, the melodies, the arrangements, the production, the storytelling, it just blows me away every single time I hear him. So
excellent. Well, thanks for that. We will definitely check that out. And where can people keep in touch with everything you're doing? What's the best social media?
Well, my website is jonathabrooke.com. I do my live streams on Facebook and YouTube. Apparently they sound better on YouTube, so go to YouTube and subscribe, and then you'll know when the next one is, and you can see all the different stuff I'm posting all the time these days. I guess that's about it.
Yeah, well, fantastic. Thanks for joining us, and keep making the music, keep pushing the back, keep putting yourself outside of your comfort zone, because it seems like it's producing some great results.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. Thank you so much for doing this. Appreciate it.
No, thank you for coming on and for joining us and telling us all about everything that you're doing. It sounds great, everything that's going on now.
Right.
And look forward to
COVID-free touring
at some point. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but certainly come over to the UK and come and see us.
I would love to. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Jonatha.
All right. See you soon.